Kevin Downs, you have a new film coming out, White Bird, and this is a very powerful movie. Give us a little bit of a synopsis for those who don't know the story.
Yeah, White Bird is set in the universe of the movie Wonder. It starts out with the bully of Wonder. His name is Julian. And of course, he got expelled at the end of that movie for him bullying that main character. And he's presented into a situation of continuing his bullying ways with a new group of kids. And he goes home, and his grandmother from Europe decides to visit, and she does it played wonderfully by Helen Mirren, and decides to tell him the story of her growing up during World War II in Nazi-occupied France. And it's a beautiful tale that will surprise you. You're not sure where it's going, but the acts of self-sacrifice and selfless love and the thematics of kindness that are at the forefront of this film are so strong. The filmmaking is so strong. It's Mark Forrester, who's a highly acclaimed director that's done a lot of big movies, but he's so good at just sucking you into this story and this world, and then allowing you to sit and experience the journey that these characters go through in a way that just leaves you at the end, for me at least as a moviegoer, cheering and wanting more. And like, man, if our whole world needs a dose of White Bird right now,
Yeah.
because it's just the kindness themes are thrust forward, with what feels like a very typical Kingdom Story Company manifest at the end of it. So very proud of the film. I think the film is super strong, and it's a great entertainment value, which is something we haven't seen too much of in a while. I've talked about this before. I think now, Hollywood, it takes a year to 2 years to make movies. And of course, we went through these labor strikes last year with the Screen Actors Guild and WGA. So we kind of in a vacuum a little bit with great films that are coming out. And Lionsgate, our partner, was really smart in setting a release date for White Bird in October. Because, when there's not great films, people tend to stay home. But there's one that drops and people know that it's really great. They'll show up and they'll come. And I think White Bird's one of those movies.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, I had a chance to watch it, and I watched it with my kids who are 9 and 12. My 9-year-old's a little young, but she got it and loved it. And my 12-year-old's been saying, we want to go to the theater and see it. We want to go see it October 4th when it comes out. They want to see it again, and they want to go. And I think that speaks to the film, the powerful messages that are in the movie. What's also unique about this is that White Bird is coming out almost to the day a year from what happened in Israel, right?
Yep.
On the attack in Israel, October 7th. And there's a lot there when you look back at history, and you look at history even repeating itself today. Why do you think this film coming out at this time is so pertinent and important?
Well, it's significant just because it's near the anniversary of that date. I mean, the thematics of kindness, set, of course, in World War II with a deep, hurtful conflict, are very similar to some things that are happening today, though the war might be different. There's just a lot of similarities. And I think the message of kindness is very important, no matter what side you sit on, in my opinion. Like, we can all do better by exhibiting more kindness to our fellow man, in my opinion. I just think, we should be treating others the way that we want to be treated. And that is the theme of White Bird. It changed me. I mean, I came out of it, sat with me for weeks when the final product was all molded. And those are the types of movies you want, that really challenge your thinking in such a way that, I can be better in this as a Christian, as a believer. I can be better in this area, this facet of my life. And you never know when people are hurting. That's the other thing. Like, people could be hurting, whether it's emotionally or physically or whatnot. And maybe that act of kindness that you can give to them can transform their life in a way you never expected.
Yeah, it's interesting watching stories like this, because you're talking about a story, and obviously a fictionalized version of things that really happened, right? But a story that happened decades and decades ago, and yet humanity hasn't really learned. And so, why do you think it's important in particular to be telling these Holocaust stories, right? Today, where we are, and not just in light of October 7th, but in general. I mean, everything feels so heavy right now.
Yeah, it's a good question actually, and so I questioned that before, attaching ourselves to Whitebird. And typically in the Holocaust stories, the elements surrounding the Holocaust are so strong that you kind of get lost in that moment. For Whitebird, for me, that wasn't the case. I was so transfixed by the actions of our two young lead characters in this film, and how that can relate to the young people today. My three boys, 11, 15, 16, have not seen it yet. They know the movie. They know the story, but we're going to see it here soon when I get a moment, and we're going to talk about it because they're going to love it. They're going to they love books, and they love that time period, and there's nothing objectionable for them. They'll be totally into it. So from that standpoint, it was important for me because a movie that they then can relate to in a way, just because the main characters are like right above their age level, right? And so that's what's going to draw them in with a message that's so needed today in today's society. I mean, we're in a very hot climate as far as media goes. It just seems like in the last 8 years, at least since I've been doing this almost 30, but the last 8 years, media has certainly gotten in a way of being able to attempt to mold and fixate our thinking that it wasn't doing before. And so, as a movie maker, how we can combat that is by making films that are kind of the opposite of what they're doing. And so we're going to continue to do that at Kingdom Story Company. I think Whitebird fits right into the center of that, is totally a target.
When I look at your journey, obviously you're doing a lot now at Kingdom Story behind the scenes, right? Running a company that is making these movies. You also are an actor. You do a lot in front of the camera too. What have you learned as you've journeyed more behind the camera over the years? What are the biggest lessons that you've learned about the industry and life in general?
Yeah, the biggest lesson for me is, and I think this is something I had early on, but it's now, especially in the last 2 years, it's definitely now been more my focus and more my passion, which is we want to get the movies right that really is going to penetrate into the heart of the moviegoer. And that can be done in a variety of ways. I mean, for sure. I mean, we see it done in a variety of ways. I'm a huge fan. Obviously, I was an actor in Courageous. I'm close friends with the Kendrick brothers. I'm a huge fan of their films. I thought The Forge was just incredible. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so their approach is very different from the approach that we take, but yet the audience can be very similar. And because their appetite for films is going to be a little bit, they'll have carrots and they'll have celery and they'll have little different things at the table. And I love that about the fact that we don't make the same movies, but we're still trying to achieve a very similar goal. And that is to lift people up, to encourage people. They're encouraging the church. We're trying to encourage, humanity as a whole, but also as the church to go out and just, whether it's Whitebird and exhibit kindness to our neighbors. Jesus Revolution, which was so great because the title Jesus Revolution, you think it's one thing, then you get into it, it's something totally different. And that had a palette for all sorts of people and surprised people in that way. And that's what I love about this. I mean, our and to just sort of hammer that point home, our film after Whitebird, Best Christmas Pageant Ever, this is the first film of ours that is truly for the entire family. If you got a 4-year-old, bring them. 5-year-old, bring them. Because the main characters are these kids. There are adults in it, but there are these kids. It's based on a best-selling book that was from the 50s or 60s. And kids and adults are going to be literally satisfied, gratified, and yet there's this huge lesson in the third act because the whole thing's about a play, the nativity play done at this church. And Dallas Jenkins, who directs it, does such a great job. So I'm excited for that one too, in different ways than I am Whitebird. But it's what makes our slate very special. And when we land on a film that really fits, you're like, okay, I think people are going to really enjoy this in a way that's going to be different than some of our other films that we release.
Yeah. No, what for you has been, and maybe this will be hard to answer, I don't know, just as we round out to a close, Whitebird, all the films that you've had, what has been the one for you that has been the most personally impactful?
That's a good question. Uh, you know, that's a really good question. Look at Billy coming up with the great
Look
ones.
at that. I have to,
Yeah.
you know, it's my
I would,
job.
yeah, it's your job. In no order. I'm going to say this in no particular order, but certainly the ones that move me emotionally are probably the ones that are incredibly or extraordinarily impactful. So, in no order, obviously for me, I can only imagine. No matter how many times I watch that thing, thing moved me to tears. Even in making it, I mean, the hundreds and hundreds of times I'd seen it during making it and shaping it because we didn't have a studio partner. We were just making it, me and the Irwin brothers making it ourselves. To Jesus Revolution. Jesus Revolution is like, okay, you see the struggle that these young kids go through, and even the adults go through with Kelsey Grammer and his journey, and all the different things. But yet we have a commonality that the gospel itself, the journey of getting to the gospel itself, is not easy. It's a very messy. It can be a very messy journey, but the resolution can be absolutely magnified in a way that's so satisfying. It's extraordinary, and so I get emotional watching that film. And then I'll go forward, which people haven't seen it. I mean, Whitebird, first of all, Whitebird is one of my top 5 all time. Not that I've made, but that I've watched. I just think the film is so good, and it's so rich. But best Christmas pageant ever, I think, is going to be a family experience that is going to be number 1 on my list. That as a family, that we're all going to be able to watch it together. One of my youngest son. Got a little tiny role in it, and he's in the cast. He hasn't seen it
Oh,
yet.
that's awesome.
So I like to save it for the premiere when we do it, but it's going to be one of those celebrations as a family that we get together. It's appropriate, right? Because it's not really an adult movie, it's a family movie. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, it's a tough, because it's like, hey, I've done 30 movies. Which one has this and that? And they're all children. At the end of the day, they're all children. So it's hard
to pick your favorite. It's hard to pick your favorite. Well, I am excited for you guys. You have a lot happening, and the film Whitebird hits October 4th. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, Billy. Appreciate it. Yeah.